You, sir, are a communist.
Like, subscribe, share with your friends, and comment, or you'll be visited by a reptilian hybrid from the Rockefeller Foundation.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a minute since my last video, but as you saw in the beginning, no, we're not going to talk about communism. Well, we are, but we're going to talk about the recent interview that Joe Biden did where he discussed the Republic of China. And in particular, whenever you discuss China, you're talking about the Chinese Communist Party. So keep that in mind. Well, basically, Joe Biden said, or President Biden said, China isn't that bad. They're okay. We're not worried about addressing the concentration camps for Uyghur Muslims. We're not worried about them building man-made islands to take control of South China Sea. We're not worried about their expansion into basically the entire continent of Africa, South America, and the Stan, such as Turkmenistan, Kyrgyzstan. These are things China's doing, and if you're wondering why they're expanding in these areas, there's a link in the description that talks about Confessions of an Economic Hitman. Now, I'm not saying this guy is 100% truthful, because some personal research after I read the book, I found him to be kind of odd at best. But it's kind of creepy, the things that happened, the things he talks about, and the things we see China doing now with giving out these huge loans that countries are going to forfeit on because they have natural resources that China needs. Because there's one thing I can guarantee you. When that famous mineral unobtainium comes around, it'll be discovered in a third world country, a country suffering in poverty, and some other country or countries will take advantage of that population to obtain that natural resource. Guaranteed. I will put both my degrees in economics and international relations on it. Now, back to China. I'm not going to do the conspiracy of young Master Biden and the money he made. I'm not worried about that part. That's for the SEC and the FBI to investigate. I'm not even going to make a goal about that. As far as how I feel about communism and socialism, you can see it right behind me. And I truly believe this. In fact, I'll cover that more in a video I'm doing later about the minimum wage, discussing another YouTuber named Bosch compared to Patrick Bet-David about the minimum wage. Now, if we go through the natural resources, China does have a lot of natural resources. They're in the top 10 worldwide. The two things China doesn't have, the two things China cannot produce on their own is petroleum and natural gas. So why would they expand into some of these areas? Well, I would venture to say natural gas and petroleum. And petroleum is very interesting because if you're a student of history, go all the way back to the 1930s, Japan was starved by a fuel embargo and how they reacted to it. Well, fuel and rubber, but that's how they reacted to it. So with China, you have to be very careful because it's the most populous country in the world. They keep growing, keep growing, keep growing. They keep trying to spread their influence, both covertly and overtly. Overtly through these loans to third world countries that are trying to grow. They can't be paid back. But covertly, even in the United States, through the Thousand Talents program and the Confucius Institutes. There have been several professors that are already under investigation or pled guilty to receiving millions of dollars illegally from the Chinese to spread their propaganda within academia. When at the same time you have the Chinese government calling for a more masculine education for the males within the Republic of China, and this is being called for by the Chinese Communist Party. And in academia, you see a trend, and I'll go ahead and throw it out there, even though it's going to be an unpopular opinion, of demasculinization in the United States. So, if they become more masculine, we become less masculine, and we can have the argument about toxic masculinity all you want. What I will say is, to be truly masculine, is you're confident enough in yourself that you don't need to prey on the weakness of others. You do not need to do things to interfere with or hurt things that are weaker than you. You will encourage and uplift all of those around you. You aren't afraid if a woman makes more money than you. You can be proud of her for doing that. So it's not a fact of I'm trying to encourage toxic masculinity. But there's a certain level of masculinity that is good. Ask the Jews that were found in these concentration camps. When we lose that, we start to have issues in this country. And the Chinese, through their influence, that's one of the things they're doing. It is what I will say, because everybody that knows me well and has ever heard me talk about politics, one of the things I discuss is the Chinese and the Russians grow up playing chess, where in America we grow up playing checkers. I love chess. But chess is a game of strategy. Chess is a game of outthinking your opponent, thinking 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 moves ahead. Checkers, not so much. Which is why our long-term national goals really don't last more than 2 years, because there's a midterm or a general election every 2 years. The Chinese, on the other hand, have the China 2025 plan. They know what they want to do in the future, and they work towards it. They work towards it as a unified nation. Now, they do this through fear. They do this through slave labor, such as the case of the Uyghur Muslims. But for our current president, that's okay. We're not going to worry about that. We're not going to worry about the spreading of their influence in these third world countries with very sensitive natural resources. Now, I'm not saying we go in and take over and take advantage of them, but I'm saying if we make a stand as a nation and assist these countries and help them grow and help them become stronger and help them become democracies. I am not saying we invade. I am not saying we go back to the history of our country with banana diplomacy, where we overthrow people and place dictators. I am not saying that at all. What I am saying is we go in with financial aid. We go in with legitimate help to help these countries grow and make them better. Because if we're not willing to do that, we're going to lose the fight. And losing the fight to a nation like China is scary. And also, with President Biden not being worried about what China does or doesn't do, what does that mean for there's this little place that's been sticking the finger up at China since the revolution, called Taiwan. As it stands now through open source, there is no way the Chinese can make a push to invade Taiwan without at least a couple of month preparation based on the sheer number of transport ships they have. So we would know it's coming. The Taiwanese would know it's coming. The Taiwanese have spent a lot of money and time both buying sophisticated equipment to defend the island and in training their soldiers. But in the end, given the sheer number of the People's Liberation Army and the People's Liberation Army Navy, it would be a Korean War type scenario where it's just sheer numbers. But what do we as a nation do if that happens? Do we not defend the ally? Do we not assist in defending the country that we've considered an ally since the Communist Revolution in China? At this point, I don't know if we would. I personally know the commander of that theater, and he's a great leader. He's a great man, probably one of the best leaders I met the entire time I was in the military. But what will our civilian leadership say? Ultimately, we need to decide. Do we try to put China in check? Do we hope in the next 10 or 20 years that the one-child policy catches up and there's unrest in China and there's an internal overthrow of the government? I don't know. I don't have the answer. The answer I do have is that we're entering a scary situation where, to quote Mike Pompeo, The Chinese have infiltrated every institution at all levels within the United States. And we saw that with the issues coming up with Eric Swalwell and Dianne Feinstein, where they had proved Chinese agents working within their staffs. So at what point do we decide that China is an enemy? We're in fifth generational warfare, which is informational warfare. This is not kicking a Nazi in the face. This is information warfare. This is economic warfare. This is cyber warfare. It's a whole different plane, and we have to understand this. So just think about it. There's some links below. It's an interview with retired General Robert Spalding, who wrote a book, Stealth War,
about his time as a attaché